extraordinary music.
What's going on, Masterclass family? This is your boy, Mr. Adams, bringing you the Masterclass trade of the day. Today is October 23rd, and today was a scary yet phenomenal day. For the last week or so, the market appeared to have the bottom to fall out. Things have just been falling for the last week or two, and things have been very uncertain. And when the market opened today, it seems like things were falling apart as well. And then suddenly, we had a swift reversal right before the afternoon, and it seems like that the bulls were desiring to come in and regain control, and that we have a potential reversal on our hands. I put out two trades today. One of the trades was SPY, and the second trade, which we're going to talk about today, is Tesla. Tesla caught my attention in the pre-market because it had our ideal gold married setup on a 5 minute, and suddenly around 9 o'clock I saw volume pick up, and I saw huge candle bars that broke through the married levels, and I put out an alert to wait for the candles to come back and test the new support of the married levels for an entry at around 264.50, and the stock completely took off and never looked back. It had over a $30 move today with our ideal setup. So let's break this down. Let's digest exactly what I saw with Tesla that allowed me to put it out both at 9 o'clock and then again I believe it at 9:37. All right, so here's Tesla on the 5 minute chart. As you can see, we have our standard gold married setup. Pivot and the daily high are fairly close together. All of the moving averages are tightly compressed together. That's forming the gold. We have our dual money flow here. We have a ton of volume right at the open, showing that there's a lot of interest in Tesla. Um, here in the pre-market, you can see where the stock began to gap higher with large candlesticks, and there's the pullback right into not just the pivot and the daily high, but also into the VWAP level as well. So this is being held up by 3 to 4 different levels of support. If we take a look at yesterday, one of the requirements for our 5-to-1 setups is consolidation. So yesterday here we had previous day's consolidation as well, which means that on the daily chart, a doji was formed. Let's take a look at the multiple time frames so I can show you exactly what caught my attention on Tesla that made me want to put this as a main trade. To the top right here is a 15-minute chart on Tesla. And if you look closely here, you have somewhat of a descending triangle or even a falling wedge. So I noticed this in a pre-market. If I'm going to take a trend line and draw from the high here and just bring it on down, connecting these lower highs. And then we have a couple of lower lows. We could make it a triangle here by having a couple with the lower lows to form the descending triangle, or we can connect the lows from here to create somewhat of a wedge situation. So after forming this wedge, or once again, you could plead the case for a triangle as well, but I would lean more towards the wedge. That breakout on a 5 minute chart that we saw in the pre-market inspired me that this was going to be a potentially huge move if it pulls back and tests. And this is a weekly VWAP here on the 15 minutes. So when it pulled back, it was also testing the weekly VWAP at this 264, 263 level before it just went higher. Let's take a look at the hourly chart. We can see that the MACD on the hourly chart was positive. Now, in most cases, we want the candlesticks to be above the cloud and above the monthly VWAP. But because the MACD was positive, we had this falling wedge on the smaller time frames, and the doji, due to the consolidation, it was certainly worth a watch. And I believe there was some news coming out about Tesla and them wanting to rush their earnings report or something like that that may have caused a short squeeze. So yeah, so the falling wedge on a intraday time frames had really caught my attention for the breakout. The MACD on a 15 minute, the MACD on a 5 minute, MACD on a 30 minute, MACD on a 1 hour was positive, and then we also had a descending triangle on a daily chart that was extending down to a pivotal level on Tesla as well. Also looking at the daily chart, here is the doji that I mentioned for yesterday, which is almost somewhat of an inside bar on the daily chart. Not quite an inside bar, but just about an inside bar. I'm sorry, and it gapped up over that level and took off all the way into the 100-day moving average on the daily chart. Once again, for a $30 move, MACD on a daily chart was positive as well. If you're looking at a higher time frame, such as the monthly or weekly chart, you can see that Tesla had been finding some support here around this 240, 250-ish level, and it had held. That's the monthly chart. I believe it's the same thing for the weekly chart as well. It's a bit more pronounced. So you had support, you had a demand zone on a higher time frames, primarily around this 260 level. This is where the last close was for last week, and pretty much held that level going into this new week. So you had confluence support, confluence demand zone on a higher time frames. That's your first test of this level, second test, and now the third test, which means that Tesla could possibly go higher, but who knows with earnings coming out. But the move certainly worked. Taking a look at the options chain, we'll use the 300 calls for example. And speaking of calls, we can see that there were 241,000 calls purchased in trading volume in comparison to 172 puts. So there is some bullishness taking place with the stock. The 300 calls went from 172 to 1360. That's about a 7.9, or we could round it off to 8 to 1. Hell, the 310 calls went from $1 to $9.91. So that's easily a 9 to 1, almost a 10 to 1 right there. So Tesla was certainly the masterclass trade of the day, with the falling wedge on the 5 minute, 15-minute, 30-minute time frames, descending triangle on the daily chart, MACD's positive on all time frames, and a gold Mary dual money flow setup on a 5 minute for a huge $30 move on a high ATR stock on a Tuesday. That's what we look for, family. Once again, 6 of those trades could change your life if you focus on the 5 to 1 setups. Masterclass, dominate.